Hi everyone. This video is about one of the major rights movements in the United States, the Civil Rights Movement, and that's one that really began in earnest in the 1950s and 1960s, especially in the American Southeast. And it was kind of spring-loaded into the national perspective after the gruesome murder of a child, 14-year-old Emmett Till, who's pictured on the top left of your screen. He was a boy from Illinois and went down to visit family in Mississippi, and a white woman in a grocery store alleged that he whistled at her. And the same night, her family members kidnapped Till from the family home and brutally and savagely murdered him. He was found a few days later in the river. His body was found. And this attack was so gruesome and so violent and so well known that this really provided kind of a springboard for the frustrations that Black people were feeling, particularly throughout the South, in terms of poor treatment, to really spur on the ability of the Civil Rights Movement to move forward. And that is a picture of the child, Emmett Till, next to his portrait there. That was him in his casket. That's how he looked after having been so violently attacked and murdered. His mother, who was broken, of course, as any parent would be, insisted on holding an open casket funeral. She said, "Let the world see what they did to my boy." And so below that photograph is probably a more recognizable, more well-known civil rights icon. That's Rosa Parks getting her fingerprints taken as she's been arrested. She was the, of course, famous seamstress who refused to move from a segregated, or refused to move on the bus to a blacks only area. Public conveyances in the South were segregated based on race, and she was seated in a section that was for Black people until a white person got on the bus, and so the bus driver said, "You have to move to the back," and she quite famously refused. She's often presented as she was tired, she'd been working hard. She said that she was an older lady, and none of those were true. She said later in an autobiography that she was simply tired of the oppression of having to constantly change for simply based on race. And so she said she thought of Emmett Till. She said, "I thought of Emmett and I could not stand up." And so the bus driver called the police. He said, I'm going to call the police if you don't move. And she said, "You may do that." Yay. And so this quite famously began the Montgomery bus boycott. So the Montgomery bus boycott was a really effective way that civil rights protesters were able to see some change in Montgomery, Alabama. And that was because the bus boycott really hit a company where it hurt. If you want to make some significant changes in a capitalist system, you hit a company in the wallet, okay? So cha-ching. The bus ridership in Montgomery was 75% Black. And overnight, literally overnight, that's correct, use the word literally there, the civil rights protesters determined that, okay, we're not going to be riding the bus anymore. And so they instituted a walk-in, a walk to work, which was a huge challenge, guys. Some people were able to rent taxis as groups, that kind of things. But for the most part, people were walking to work. And this lasted almost a year. Now, walking for a few miles is quite nice. In October, that's pretty pleasant, okay? Or in maybe March or April. But imagine walking in Alabama in July or August. That's a hard pass. And so that really took a great deal of dedication to bring the bus system to its knees. The bus system lost 3/4 of its revenue overnight, and that was a significant shift for that business. And so this was a really effective way, and a very hard way, a very challenging way to make change occur. And so that really was the kind of impetus for the civil rights movement throughout the South that ultimately ended in integrated spaces as opposed to segregated spaces. Schools were integrated sometimes forcibly throughout the 1960s in the South and in some northern states. And this is something that we still continue to this day in terms of integration, a lot of social integration. We still have challenges there. And in 2008, our first black president was elected, and the world said, "Okay, cool. Is race tension? Are race tensions over in America?" Nah, of course not. We still see some racial tensions today. Of course, the Black Lives Matter movement has been really the next step for the civil rights movement. And of course, there's a lot of backlash there. You see the response with the Blue Lives Matter, and then white supremacy. In the last 3 years, white supremacist groups have gained just extraordinary social presence. They actually started increasing in membership in 2008 after Obama was elected. The Ku Klux Klan membership increased by over a third. And so you can see some of the effects of that on the top right photograph. That's a picture outside the South Carolina State House a few years ago. And that was a really, really hot day. It was the first day of September, and you guys know that you don't stand outside in full sunlight the first day of September because it's going to be miserable. At least in Columbia, it's going to be miserable. And so the bottom right picture, Nikki Haley tweeted this out. She said, "This is the best of South Carolina. You've got a white supremacist who's on the right wearing the dark glasses who was about to collapse from the heat." And that's the officer assisting him is Leroy Hudson. It was his last week serving in the state capitol. And he pointed out, he was helping the man get to shade and a water fountain. And he pointed out that it was a weird, weird world that we were living in, because when he first became an officer, he wasn't eligible to serve in the State House because of the color of his skin, because he was black. And so that this happened on his last week, he said it felt like a very, very strange full circle. And so obviously there will be future movements to spring from these, and we will see what they are, what direction they take.